I'm Bill Duran, and I've been building props and costumes for the last 5 years. Here at Punished Props, we make nothing but the finest replica props. Welcome to the Prop Shop. Hey everybody, it's Bill Duran here from Punished Props, and did you see that video? That's right, that new music video by I Fight Dragons features a helmet made by me! How cool is that? The helmet is from a game called Constant Sea. I'll put a link to that down below, as well as the full video so you can check it out. I built that helmet a few months ago, and I shot a whole bunch of video of the process back then, so I will let Bill from the past tell you all about it. Take it away, Bill with the goofy hair. A couple of months ago, the fine folks over at 5PB Games came to me to talk about building a helmet of one of their characters from the game Constant Sea. So, I did. I started by roughly modeling out the helmet in Maya and then exporting that to Pepakura Designer, where I cut it up and laid it out nice and flat so that those pieces could be printed on cardstock. Those cardstock pieces were painstakingly cut out using an X-ACTO knife and a straight edge. The fold lines were scored using an awl to make it really easy to fold those pieces. For a little structure, I put together a skeleton from PVC pipe and some really thick cardboard. The cardstock Pepakura pieces were glued together and assembled on that skeleton. This took a very long time. Once the cardstock Pepakura pieces were all assembled in a big dome shape, the entire thing was coated in an epoxy resin to make it nice and rigid. Once that cured, I cut out the skeleton part and put in some fiberglass cloth and resin on the inside, making it nigh indestructible. The outside of the dome was sanded, and then many layers of Bondo were applied. These layers fared out the faceted faces that were left behind from the Pepakura process. The Bondo was sanded down to give the dome a nice, round, even shape. I hit the whole thing with a red primer and sanded it a whole bunch more times to make sure I got rid of all of the dents and bumps left behind. Once I was happy with the shape, the entire thing was coated in a polyurethane plastic resin. This gave the outside a nice, homogeneous density. That layer was also sanded, and then I used math to figure out where all of the facial features would be going. The eye holes and ear holes were carefully cut out using a tiny little handsaw, and then I put a tube through the ear holes to rest the big old ear guys on. That tube was glued in place, and then the middle part was cut out so that the wearer could fit it over their head. The top antenna piece there was made from a couple of pieces of PVC pipe in different diameters, and then the light piece for the antenna was cut out of a 1/2 inch thick white opaque acrylic plastic. This is to diffuse the light later on. The ear pieces were cut out of various diameters of PVC plumbing fixtures, and then the sort of C shape on the outside was cut from an 1/8 inch chunk of PVC sheet, very carefully using a bandsaw and a scroll saw. I put more of that 1/2 inch thick white acrylic inside of the ears, again to diffuse light, because I added some LED rings behind there. The acrylic really diffused that light a whole bunch to give it a nice, even glow. A seam was added down the side of each head where those sort of nub things would go. The nubs themselves were cast out of a tiny silicone mold that I made and glued into place. These are both aesthetic, and they would cover some bolts that I used to attach a functional helmet on the inside of the dome. The inside of the light up pieces were made from a vacuum formed piece of styrene that I formed over a lathed piece of tooling foam. This gave the wearer just a little bit of visibility as they peek out from the edges of those eye lights. With all of the pieces put together, I primed and painted the entire helmet. I went with a buffable Metalizer lacquer for the finish on this guy. The whole thing got hit with that lacquer and then buffed using a cloth about 10 minutes later. Finally, a functional hard hat was installed on the inside of the dome so that the wearer had something solid to rest their noggin in. Foam and a chin strap were added for comfort. To finish the whole piece off, I added a 9-volt battery and a switch that lights up all of those nice and pretty lights so that I could have a dance party. Hey, this was a really fun build, and I'm stoked for the folks over at 5PB Games to play around with their new helmet. You can see this fella over at their game. Go check out constancygame.com. If you really liked this build video, then you're in luck because I've got a whole bunch more coming up. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe because you're not going to want to miss that stuff. You can also find out everything else that I've got going on my webpage at punishprops.com. Thanks, guys.